Hey guys, tonight, we journey into a world you think you know, but trust me, you don't. Because tonight we're not following monarchs or tracing maps of conquests. We're stepping far below the banners and above the filth, into the lives of the people who didn't write the history books, but survived them anyway. This is the story of how medieval peasants survived. Not just lived, but survived. Survived plagues that emptied entire villages, survived winters without food, survived taxes that crushed their families' lords who claimed their children and kings who forgot their names, and somehow they endured. But before we get swept into their world, if you enjoy these deep, sleepy dives into the past, go ahead and like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a comment telling me what time it is where you're listening from. It's always a comfort to see this strange little global village gathering together to drift off. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. Let the day fall away. Let your shoulders drop. Let your breath slow. And let's slip together into tonight's story. Tonight's journey, how medieval peasants survived plagues, starvation, and rulers. We romanticize the Middle Ages, sometimes cobblestone villages, glowing hearths, mugs of ale raised in song. But the truth was far bleaker. Life was uncertain. Justice was rare. And nature itself felt hostile. There were no antibiotics, no food security, no social safety net. There was just earth, sweat, fire, and fear. But somehow, peasants, men, women, children, families managed to outlast it all. They weren't powerful, but they were resilient. They didn't own armies, but they knew the land better than any king. They couldn't read, but they passed knowledge from hand to hand, season to season, learning how to outwit the worst the world could offer. So tonight, you are not an observer. You are not modern. You are not safe. You are a medieval peasant, and every breath you take is a quiet act of defiance. Over the next 2 hours, you'll walk barefoot across frozen ground. You'll stand in bread lines and watch rats circle your grain sacks. You'll cough blood and wonder if it's the plague. You'll bend your back under wheat, under worry, under the weight of someone else's war. You'll learn the tricks, the rituals, the things you whisper to the wind because you think it might be listening. And by the end, you'll see how survival isn't just about strength, it's about stubbornness. Let's begin. You wake up cold. Not a shiver, not a chill, but a bone-deep, marrow-hollow cold that feels like it belongs inside you. You don't know what time it is. There are no clocks. Just the blackness of early morning. The kind of dark that has weight. Your eyes open to smoke. It hangs low in the room, soft and sharp at the same time, wood smoke thick with the memory of last night's fire. The hearth has long since died, but its ashes still smolder, casting ghost light on the rough walls around you. The ceiling is low, thatched. You see cobwebs swaying above, and in the silence a sound, soft, familiar. Scritch, scritch, something moving through the straw overhead. You don't move. Not yet. You take stock. Your blanket is a rough wool cloak. Your bed is a sack of straw, flattened and itchy. Your ribs ache. You slept in your clothes. Everyone does. There is no other way. Beside you, someone stirs. Your spouse, your sibling, maybe your child, whoever shared the mat with you last night. On the floor near the fire, more bodies stir beneath blankets. Your family, your world. The cold is sharp enough to make your teeth hurt. You sit up slowly. The rushes beneath you rustle, and you wince as a sharp bit of reed digs into your thigh. You stretch your back. It cracks. You don't feel rested. You never do. Rest is for the afterlife, or so you've been told. Your home is small. One room, maybe two if you're lucky, and someone had the energy to patch up the lean-to last year. The walls are made of wattle and daub sticks, woven and packed with mud. The cold seeps through them like smoke through old cloth. There's a shutter over a hole in the wall you call a window. It doesn't fit properly. Wind squeezes through the edges like a thief. There's no glass. Glass is for churches and lords. You listen. The morning brings sounds. The drip of melted frost from the roof. The whimper of a hungry goat. A rooster somewhere distant. The cough of your child. That last one makes you pause. A cough is never just a cough. You lean over and place a hand on their forehead. Warm, maybe too warm. You sigh quietly. Hope it's nothing. Pray it's not the beginning of something worse. The sick die quickly here, and the healers are few. You rise. Everything hurts. You pull your tunic down over your knees, knot your belt with fingers stiff from cold, and step toward the hearth. You poke the ash. Maybe there are coals left. If there are, yet you can light a fire without flint. If not, well, you hope your neighbor is awake and generous this morning. You add a stick, some straw. You blow gently. A glow. A flicker. You feel the first thread of heat wrap around your knuckles like a blessing. The others begin to stir. Your eldest child wipes their face with a scratchy sleeve. Someone asks if there's food. There isn't. Not yet. You'll check the pot. You'll scrape the sides. Maybe there's enough for a week's soup, maybe there's not. You glance at the corner where the bread was hung in a sack. You curse. A hole. A familiar one. Rats. Again. They've chewed through the rope this time. Dragged a half loaf across the floor. You find it near the wall, torn, gnawed, dotted with droppings. You throw it in the fire. You do not have the energy to be angry. This is just what mornings are. You look at the others. They look back, hollow-eyed and resigned. You sweep the floor not to clean, but to gather straw for kindling. You sweep carefully. Last week, a neighbor stepped on a rat in the rushes. It bit her ankle. She limped for days. Then she didn't come to market. No one asked why. You open the door and step outside. The cold bites harder. Frost covers the grass. The sky is a dull gray, not yet ready to be blue. Smoke curls from two other huts nearby. The well is still. A few chickens scratch at frozen mud. One peasant, bundled in layers, trudges toward the woods with an axe. You nod. They nod back. That's conversation enough. You fetch water. It's heavy. The bucket groans. Back inside, the others wait. The fire is growing. You warm your hands, then pull your child close and check their eyes. No redness, no boils, no bleeding, just that cough. You cross yourself, just in case. You check the pot, add water, stir. Pray the flavor clinging to the sides still has strength. You glance again at the chewed rope. You'll have to sleep with the bread under your blanket now, or hang it from the rafters again. But even then, rats climb. They always climb. This is how the day begins, not with choice, but with endurance. You have nothing to spare, not energy, not food, not hope, but you move anyway, because the field needs turning, the wood needs splitting, and the tax is due. Survival doesn't wait for comfort, and neither can you. The pot boils, slowly, reluctantly. It sputters over the fresh fire like it resents being woken. Inside, mostly water-scraped onion skin and a few old lentils. You stir it with a stick that used to be part of a fence. It's all wood now, all the same. Your family waits. Not in hunger exactly, they passed that point days ago, but in habit. They watch the steam rise like it might bring news or flavor. You serve the soup. Wooden bowls passed hand to hand. A piece of bread. What's left after the rats chewed the edge, dipped quickly, and eaten even faster. No one talks. Chewing is easier in silence. The taste, it doesn't matter. It's warm. And warmth these days is what passes for comfort. This is breakfast. Sometimes you might have pottage, a thick porridge-like mix of oats and vegetables. Sometimes a boiled egg if your hen has been generous. Rarely a sliver of cheese aged more than you'd like to admit. But usually it's this. Soup that was dinner the night before. Soup that will likely become lunch, and if you're lucky, soup again tomorrow, thinner, sadder, but still hot. You glance at the bread again. The bite marks are unmistakable. Tiny, perfect crescents pressed deep into the crust. The rats are getting bolder, hungrier, or maybe just more numerous. You whisper under your breath, nothing sacred, just a curse to no one in particular, and flick the chewed edge into the fire. And then comes hygiene, if you can call it that. You walk outside. Behind the hut, there's a hole in the ground. You squat. There's a faint smell of rot and cold earth. It's not pleasant, but it's yours. No one taxes this spot. Not yet. Back inside, there's no wash basin, no mirror, no privacy. You dip your hands into a bucket of gray water. You splash your face. The cold stings. You rub your eyes with your sleeve, coarse wool, stiff with old sweat. It's not clean, but it's familiar. Your teeth, you pick them with a twig. You rub the bark flat, fray the end with a stone and scrape what you can. You spit into the corner away from the rushes. Rinse with ale if you have it, or just water if you're feeling brave. Soap exists, somewhere. You made some once from lard and ash. It sits on a high shelf like treasure used only when absolutely needed childbirth wounds, church days. Bathing, not this week. Not last week either. It's too cold. The river's half frozen. Heating water costs firewood, and firewood costs time, and time costs warmth. You'll wait until the sun returns. The church tells you to bathe for holy days. The healer tells you to bathe for rashes. Your mother told you to bathe when your neighbors started keeping their distance. But survival tells you it can wait. Your children scratch their scalps. Your spouse rubs their eyes raw. Everyone has lice. No one says it out loud. You boil the comb when you can. You pick the eggs from hair when you have time. Today there's no time. You check your feet blistered damp from worn boots. You smear pig fat on the worst of the cracks. You wrap them in cloth. Your hands are calloused. Your nails are black with soil and ash. You clean under them with a sliver of bone. And still you feel dirty. Because dirt isn't something you wash off. It's something you live in. You sweep the floor. Not for neatness, but because droppings attract disease. The rushes are old. You change them when you can, but that means more labor, more time, more expense. For now, you push them flat again. Your cat stretches near the fire. You feed it a crumb. It hisses not at you, but at something in the wall. You watch the beam above your head. Something scurries. It's always there. You whisper a quick blessing. You rub a sprig of dried sage between your fingers. The smell calms you. Supposedly it wards off pestilence. or rats, or evil. The old woman in the next hut swears by it. She also claims she once saw a rat read a coin. You believe her. You smell the pot again, burnt. You stir, add a dash of salt, precious and limited. Too much and the soup becomes luxurious. Too little and it becomes punishment. Your spouse coughs. You glance over. Not again, you think. Your mind flashes to boils, to black spots, to the memory of a cart pulling bodies from the next village. You chew your lip. It's probably just the smoke. Probably. You wipe your hands on your tunic. Sling your cloak over your shoulder. Lace your boots such as they are. And you prepare to face the world. You're not clean. You're not full. But you're alive. And in this world that's already a victory, you step outside into the morning air, your breath already rising in pale curls, your limbs wrapped in every layer of fabric you own. Clothing for you isn't about style, it's about survival. Your tunic is wool, thick, coarse, and homespun. It's scratchy against your skin, but it holds warmth. Or at least it holds in the cold so it doesn't escape all at once. You have another layer beneath it, patched at the elbows, stained with sweat and soot. Your cloak is heavy damp with yesterday's rain and carries the scent of smoked garlic and animal hair. It's not elegant. It's not clean. But it keeps your back dry when you kneel in the mud. Your boots are more aspiration than fact. Leather once, now more patch than shoe. One sole flaps as you walk like a tired mouth. The wool wrappings around your calves try to fill the gaps, but the cold always finds its way in. Your belt holds everything you can't afford to lose your knife. A pouch of dried herbs, 2 withered apples, and a bit of cloth you use as a handkerchief. A bandage and a pouch for saving crumbs all at once. There's no wardrobe in your home. No closet. No spare set of clothes. Every garment you own is either on your body hanging from a nail or spread across your sleeping mat to soften the straw. Laundry day, that's when something gets wet. Soap. Only if you made it yourself. Warm water only if you've recently committed to a level of effort that ruins your entire day. You mend with bone needles, with twine made from flax. You stitch patches over other patches until the original garment is a memory wrapped in newer fabric. Children wear hand-me-downs that were already old when you were young. Trousers hemmed shorter and shorter. Tunics let out again and again. Some days you wrap a belt around them just to keep the sleeves from dragging in the soup. And still you're grateful for every stitch. Because warmth is life. And your shelter, it does what it can. Your home is humble, built by your family's hands or maybe your grandfather's hands, and stubbornly standing in spite of time and weather. The walls are wattle and daub. Beneath the surface, it's a skeleton of sticks woven tight like a basket. Mud, straw, and manure pack the gaps. When it rains, it leaks. When the wind howls, it shudders. The roof is thatch, thick, tangled reeds layered over a wooden frame. In summer, it crackles with dry insects and falling dust. In winter, it grows heavy with frost and sometimes caves a little when the snow piles up. The thatch is home to many things: birds, beetles, spiders, and rats. They live in the rafters. You hear them at night, scratching, scrambling, sometimes even squealing. They drop bits of chewed thatch into your soup pot if you forget to cover it. You stuff herbs into the eaves. You hang charms. You leave the cat on guard. It helps, a little. Inside space is tight. The hearth sits in the center, blackened with years of soot. Around it, everything else, your bedrolls, a crude table, some stools, your storage baskets. The walls are bare except for bundles of dried nettles and a crude wooden cross. There are no windows, just small slits covered by wooden shutters. They let in cold, sometimes light. The floor is dirt, covered in rushes. The rushes catch everything: ash, spills, rat droppings, lice. You replace them when you can, which isn't often enough. Your food hangs from the ceiling in baskets tied to beams. Your pots line the hearth. Your tools hang by the door. There's no privacy. If someone gets sick, they cough in the corner. If someone dies, they die in the center of the room. You build memories in layers of noise, smells, smoke, and struggle. But it's yours, and you protect it. You patch the holes. You hammer boards. You sweep the floor even when it seems pointless. Because your home is more than shelter. It's proof. Proof that you exist, that you can endure, that even in a world ruled by lords and plagued by death, you can carve out one space and say, "This is mine," even if the rats sometimes forget that. You stuff another cloth into the wall where a draft creeps in. You light a candle. You sit near the hearth. And you rest for a moment, not because the work is done, but because the shelter you've built is holding. For now. The sun isn't even fully up yet, and your body already aches. You haven't even moved. But your bones remember yesterday and the day before, and every day that came before that, every moment you've lifted, hauled, dug, planted, and staggered back home so exhausted you could barely finish your gruel. Because you're a medieval peasant, and work isn't something you do, it's something you are. Every breath is labor. Every hour survival. The rooster crows, though. Let's be honest, that thing's been crowing since it was still dark. You roll off your straw bedding brush bits of hay from your tunic, and hope today your hands don't blister worse than yesterday. Your first job, get water. If the well isn't frozen, if your neighbors didn't poison it out of spite or superstition, if you don't slip and crack your skull on the ice. So you take the bucket, whisper a prayer to Saint whoever protects knees, and begin. From there, the work stacks up like firewood in winter. In spring and summer, you plow fields with tools that have seen better centuries. Your plow is made of wood. It creaks like a dying ox every time it touches rock and medieval soil. All rocks. You guide it as best you can, praying the ox doesn't drop dead mid-furrow. If it does, you don't just lose an animal. You lose a season. Planting comes next. Your hands dig through soil, fingers numb or bleeding. If it rains too much, everything drowns. If it rains too little, everything withers. But you plant anyway, because not planting is death. Later in the year, harvesting turns your body into a tool. You swing the sickle, bend, gather, swing again. You do it until your back begs for mercy. There is no mercy. You wrap a cloth around your waist to ease the ache. It doesn't help. You keep going. If you're lucky enough to have a cow, you milk it. If you've got chickens, you check the coop. If you've got a pig, you feed it scraps and hope it grows fat, because its death might be your life come winter. Women don't rest either. They churn butter, mend clothes, gather herbs, tend gardens, birth children, care for the sick, cook, and still help in the fields. It's not multitasking. It's the bare minimum. And if you're a child, congratulations. Your life of labor starts now. Herd the sheep, chase off crows, sweep the house, stir the pot. Memorize the grind, because it will be your rhythm for the rest of your life. No gloves, no boots, no safety. If you slip on a wet stone fall with a scythe or catch a chill from the river, there's no rescue. You just hurt. Quietly. And keep working. Your Lord, He takes a share of your grain. The church, a tithe. You, what's left, if anything. Still, you persist. Because there's no backup plan, no retirement, just the hope of enough food for winter and a body that still moves come spring. And yet, despite the back-breaking cruelty of it all, there's dignity in the tilling, in the sweat, in the quiet victory of a loaf of bread that didn't come from charity. In a world designed to forget you, you fight each day to matter. And maybe, just maybe, that's something close to freedom. You kneel. Not because it's Sunday, not because you feel holy, but because you've run out of options. Your daughter has a fever. The grain store is nearly empty, and something has been scratching in the walls at night. You've set traps, lit the fire higher, whispered your curses, but still the sounds return. So now you kneel. Your knees press into the hard-packed dirt near a crude wooden cross nailed crooked above your hearth. You whisper a prayer, not eloquent, not memorized, but desperate. Because this is your reality, a world where the invisible is as feared as the visible, where the plague comes like wind, where the Lord taxes you without looking you in the eye, where your only answer to rats, sickness, frost, and hunger is faith. You don't go a day without believing in something, and most days you believe in everything. Saints, curses, holy relics, full moons, bad smells, demons in the well, the power of rosemary, the evil eye, the goodness of garlic. Your religion, Catholicism, is official. The church governs the soul as surely as the king governs your village. The priest speaks Latin even if you don't. He tells you what to fear, what to confess, what to pay, and still you keep your own customs, because the priest doesn't know about the red string you tie around your baby's wrist, or the way your mother used to spit on bread before throwing it to the birds to keep death from circling the house, or how your grandmother swore by leaving milk at the crossroads to keep the spirits calm. No one taught you to believe. You just learned. You believe in God, yes. You fear Him more than you love Him. You picture Him as a storm, a silence, a hand reaching into your life to take something away. You believe in hell. You live close enough to its edges. You believe in sin. You feel it thick as mud when you curse your neighbor or steal a potato. You believe in saints because they feel more human. Saint Apollonia for toothaches, Saint Isidore for farming, Saint Gertrude to keep the rats away. Her name is scratched on the beam above your food shelf. You say it when you hear skittering. Sometimes it works. Your beliefs are layered, conflicting, practical. You cross yourself before chopping wood. You murmur a charm before a long walk. You throw salt over your shoulder when you spill it. You don't sweep after sunset. You never ever let a cat cross the path ahead of you and keep walking without spitting on the ground. Do you believe these things? Yes. Do they work? Sometimes, and that's enough. Because when the plague comes, and it will, you need something to hold on to. You've seen what it does. You remember the black boils, the way people coughed until their lungs bled, how the village went quiet, how the priest dug 6 graves in one day and then stopped counting. You remember the rats, bold and fat, following the carts like mourners. No one knew what caused it, but everyone agreed God was angry. So you fasted. You flogged yourself. You burned dried lavender. You confessed to lies you barely remembered telling. You drew a cross on your door in chalk. You locked it and didn't speak for 3 days. And still you lost someone. You lit a candle. You cried. Then you went back to work. Because what else could you do? Don't just believe in divine punishment. You believe in divine tests. Every death, every frost, every failed crop is a lesson. Endure it right, and maybe God will spare you next time. Or maybe He won't. But belief isn't about reward. It's about control. When your world gives you so little, belief is the one thing that belongs to you. You can light your candle. You can mutter your charm. You can tie rosemary to the rafters. And when the storm passes, if it passes, you can say, I did my part. And maybe that's the real reason medieval peasants survived. Not because they were stronger, but because they believed enough to keep going. And sometimes that's the only miracle you need. The sun has started its slow descent, but there's still work to do. Always more work. And yet, for a brief moment, you dare to step inside your hut, lower your aching body onto the stool that leans ever so slightly to the left, and breathe in the thick scent of boiling grain. Dinner is not a celebration. It's not a reward. It's maintenance. Like adding oil to a lantern or stuffing straw in a drafty wall. You eat so you can work again tomorrow. But even so, this moment is sacred. You lift the lid from the pot. Inside pottage. Again. A warm, wet stew of barley leeks, old cabbage, and whatever herbs you've foraged. Sometimes, if fortune has smiled, and a chicken has died, or a fish has been caught, you add meat. Not tonight. Tonight it's just grain and green bits. You scrape the bottom, and serve it out with the ladle made from a hollowed gourd. Wooden bowls, wooden spoons, no plates, no forks. You eat from what's in front of you, quickly, quietly. It's not because of manners. It's because you're tired. And because the cat has already begun to circle, eyeing what you drop. Bread, maybe. A dark, heavy loaf from the rye flour you traded last market day. You kept it wrapped in cloth stored high, safe from mice. Or so you thought. You find the gnaw marks. You tear away the damaged part. Burn it in the fire without comment. Then tear off a piece for each child. The youngest drops theirs. The cat wins the battle. You drink ale with dinner. Weak, cloudy, often sour, but safer than the stream water which sometimes smells of rot. Water is for washing, not drinking, unless it's boiled, unless you're desperate. Meals are when families gather, not just yours, sometimes a neighbor, sometimes the widow who has nothing left. You share what you can, because one day it might be you showing up empty-handed. After the bowls are scraped, the fire stoked, the pot refilled for tomorrow. There's a pause, and in that pause something rare happens. People talk. Laughter isn't forbidden in a peasant's life. It's essential. It's the only thing that makes the next sunrise bearable. You tell a story. Maybe the one about the man who tried to teach his goat Latin. Maybe the tale of the ghostly knight who rides backwards on a headless horse. The children giggle. The adults smile. You hum a tune, one you learned from your mother. A song about harvest and love and drinking too much cider. Someone claps. Someone sings along. And then someone pulls out a fiddle. Yes, it's missing a string. Yes, it sounds more like a dying crow than music. But no one cares. Because for these few moments, you are not just laborers. You are a people. With culture. With joy. With music. And memory. And rhythm, however ragged. If it's a holy day or close enough, you might go to the green near the church. You might watch a puppet play. Or join in a dance, slow and stumbling. If the reeve is in a good mood, he won't even charge you for it. You drink cheap ale from clay mugs. You throw dice made from bone. You tell jokes about the Lord's beard. Someone inevitably passes out. Someone else sings a song about a chicken that married a duck. And for a while you forget about the cold. the rats, the cough that won't leave your child's lungs, the bread that went missing. You are human again, not a beast of burden, not a number on a tax scroll, not a vessel of sin, but someone who laughs, someone who dances badly, someone who, despite everything, still hopes for spring. When the fire dies low and the stories grow thin, you gather your family close. You wrap yourself in patchy wool, and for just a moment before the next day begins again, you are full, not of food, but of something like peace. The cough started yesterday. Soft, infrequent. Today it's worse. Wet, heavy, rattling through your child's chest like stones in a sack. You press your hand to their forehead. Hot. And not the kind of hot that goes away. You say nothing. Because what is there to say? There are no doctors here. Not really. Just a midwife with old bones and older herbs. A healer who speaks in riddles. A priest who reads from a book you can't understand. Medicine for you isn't science. It's survival wrapped in ritual. You boil water, add elderflower, a bit of garlic if you can spare it, a spoonful of honey if there's any left. The herbs hiss as they hit the pot, releasing steam that smells faintly of hope and rot. You hold the bowl to their lips. They sip, cough again. You whisper a prayer. You check the other children. No cough yet. Good. You pull the sick one closer, wrap them in every scrap of cloth you can find, and rock them gently. Your eyes keep flicking to the corner of the room, to the shadow near the rushes, to where you last saw rat droppings. Because you've seen this story before. Where there are rats, there is sickness, and where there is sickness, there is loss. You still remember the plague. The Black Death came years ago, but time means little when you measure it in graves. You remember the sound the carts made, wooden wheels grinding over stone. You remember the silence that followed. Whole families gone, doors marked with chalk. Children left alone crying beside bodies that wouldn't wake. And the smell. Nothing will ever smell like that again. You survived, somehow. You buried more than one friend. You whispered your sins into a hole in the ground and covered it with dirt. And then you went back to the fields, because you had to. But you haven't forgotten. No one forgets the plague. So now when a cough lingers, you panic quietly. You boil everything. You burn herbs in the hearth, rosemary, sage, wormwood. You sleep near the sickbed. You avoid touching your own face. You refuse to sweep after dark, because that's when spirits stir, or so they say. You tie red ribbon around your child's wrist. You hang garlic at the door. You scatter salt around the sleeping mat. And you wait. Sometimes they recover. Sometimes they don't. If they don't, you dig. There's no undertaker, no ceremony, just a hole in the ground and a cross made from 2 sticks. You say a prayer. You whisper their name. You place a stone. Then you go home and wash your hands in cold water and hope the rats didn't see you cry. Other illnesses come and go, fevers, pox, dysentery, rot. You treat what you can. Poultices, leeching, honey smeared on wounds, urine dabbed on bites. Does it help? Sometimes. Sometimes not. The church says sickness is punishment for sin. You don't argue. You just keep your head down. Go to Mass. Light a candle. Hope for mercy. You know the smell of death too well. It clings, It lingers. It weeps from the pores. You've buried babies, parents, siblings, friends, and still life goes on. The field waits. The cow moans. The bread must rise. No time for grief. No time for rest. You work with tears on your cheeks and soil under your nails. You survive because there's no other choice. And when it's your turn, because it will be you, only hope it's quick. You don't fear death itself. You fear the in-between, the ache, the fever, the confusion, the rats. Yes, the rats. Because once you stop moving, they come. They know. They always know. So you sleep light. You keep your knife close. You stuff the cracks in the wall with whatever you can find. Because if death comes for you tonight, at least you won't face it alone. You'll face it in your home, with the fire low and the saints watching, and maybe, just maybe, a child still breathing beside you. If the village has a spine, it isn't the church or the fields or the Reeves house. It's the woman kneeling by the hearth, stirring the pot with one hand, cradling a baby with the other, scolding a child, packing herbs, slapping a rat away, and preparing for tomorrow all at once. Because in your world, women are the engine of existence. They don't rest. They don't pause. They don't ask. They simply endure. If you're a woman, your life began with quiet commands. Help your mother. Mend this hem. Watch the baby. Your playthings were twine and bones and wooden dolls with names you whispered into straw pillows. You bled young, worked young, grew old before your time. You learned how to make a fire before you learned how to read. You know the weight of a baby on one hip while pulling water with the other. Marriage wasn't a choice. It was a timeline. You became a wife when the seasons said so. Sometimes 13. Sometimes 15. There was no ceremony, just a binding, a moving in, a new name, a harder life. Children come fast, sometimes one a year, sometimes more. Each one a hope, a risk, a burden, a blessing. You've buried as many as you've raised. You remember each name, even the ones no one else does. The ones who lived a day, a week, a month. You keep their memory in the curve of your spine, the creak of your knees, the way you whisper when the wind moans too loud. Your days begin in darkness. You rise before the rooster. Bake the bread. Stir the pot. Collect the eggs. Wash the children. Churn. Spin. Weave. Knead. Patch. You do the math without numbers, how many beans per person, how much water before the next trip to the well, how many hours until night returns. You are the doctor, the cook, the seamstress, the mother, the nurse, the peacemaker. You tend wounds with spit and salt. You scare off rats with brooms and songs. You carry the stories of the dead, the recipes of the living, the dreams of the unborn. And you don't stop, because no one will pick up where you leave off. Your husband. He works too, back bent in the field, hands red with cold, feet blistered. He's tired, so tired. But when he comes home, the house is still standing, because of you. Children are both salvation and sorrow. They carry water, tend fires, sweep floors, but they also cry, get sick, get lost, get hungry. You teach them not to hope too much. You teach them how to spot spoiled meat, how to scare crows from the field, how to bury a sibling. You do it gently, because there's no time to do it twice. If you are lucky, your child grows into work. If you are very lucky, they stay. Most don't. Boys vanish into war. Girls vanish into other homes, other beds, other kitchens. You keep a bit of cloth they wore, a wooden toy, a smile, and you go back to kneading bread. Family for you is not just love. It's labor. It's shared heat. It's someone to lean on when the pain in your side makes you sit down hard and pretend it's just fatigue. It's laughter in the cold. It's a warm hand in the night. It's knowing the cough you heard across the room doesn't mean another grave this week. You measure life in moments. The sound of your child laughing as they chase a chicken. The way your husband looks at you when you hand him a hot bowl. The soft breath of your baby asleep on your chest. These are riches, more than land, more than coin. They are yours. And so you keep going, because the fire won't stoke itself, and the child needs new shoes, and the rats have returned, and the sky might hold rain, and you have 100 more things to do before sleep, and you will do every single one, because that's what family means here. It's not a story. It's a shift, a job, a vow made every day, and broken only by death. The sun is past its peak now. You don't need a clock to know it. You feel it in your limbs, the way the light shifts, the way the wind picks up through the trees, the quiet murmur of the village less hopeful now, more tense. Afternoon brings more than exhaustion. It brings friction. Because in this small world, everything is shared, and everything shared is eventually fought over. The first struggle work. Your neighbor's ox wandered into your strip of field again. It trampled the edge of your barley. You saw it. He saw it. But no one says anything yet. You say something and it becomes a fight. You say nothing and it becomes resentment. So you grit your teeth. You keep weeding. You let the wind carry your curses. Next, the bread oven. It's communal, which means it's crowded. Everyone wants to use it when the sun is high and the heat is best. You waited your turn. You were polite. But now someone's child threw in dough ahead of yours. Too early, too fast. Now your loaf might burn. You speak up. The child shrugs. Their mother glares. Another crack forms in the fragile pottery of village peace. Water is next. The well has a crack near the edge. You pointed it out last week. No one fixed it. Now the bucket's fallen in again, and someone says you dropped it. You didn't. You say so. They don't believe you. Or worse, they do, but they're bored. And bored people love a scapegoat. You walk away. Let the anger sit in your stomach beside the cold stew from lunch. The children get into fights too. Over sticks, over stones, over who got the last crust. You break it up with a firm voice and a soft threat. But the tension stays. Because when people have nothing, everything becomes valuable. A clean tunic, a dry roof, a sharper knife, even dignity. And when your world is this small, the line between neighbor and rival is razor thin. The village reeve doesn't help. He favors some families. He ignores others. His cousin always gets the best firewood. His brother's son borrows tools that never return. But you say nothing, because the reeve speaks for the Lord, and the Lord speaks for God. And you just plant carrots, but it's not all personal. Some struggles are baked into the world itself, like taxes. You owe grain, always grain. The amount shifts, increases. Sometimes you don't even know how much until the cart arrives. They take what they want. And if you argue, they take more. Or worse, they leave a mark beside your name. And next time they take everything. The priest speaks of fairness, of charity, but even the church takes its cut. 1/10 of your harvest, 1/10 of your breath. No matter how small your portion, you pay. Because if you don't, you're not just poor, you're cursed. So you split your grain, you split your firewood, you split your patience, until there's none left. And still the rats come. They don't care for borders. They chew everyone's sacks, everyone's blankets. They are the great equalizer. And somehow even that causes fights. Your house brought them. You don't clean well enough. You don't pray hard enough. The blame shifts like ash in the wind. Never sticks, just burns. Sometimes there's violence, a shove, a punch, a knife pulled too fast. Justice is swift and often wrong. You've seen a man whipped for stealing a turnip. You've seen a woman ocked in stocks for cursing too loudly. You've seen a boy vanish after being caught near the Lord's orchard. No one asked questions. No one had the power to. So you keep your head down. You smile when needed. You laugh when it's safe. You offer your last crust of bread to the widow next door, not because you like her, but because one day it might be you asking. Survival isn't just about weather and rats. It's about politics. Tiny, brutal politics that live between glances and gestures. You learn to read them, to navigate them, to play just enough. And when the sun finally dips low, you breathe a little easier. Because you made it through another day without a fight you couldn't walk away from. And that's a kind of victory. Small, silent, but real. Night doesn't fall in the village. It collapses. The light dies all at once like a candle pinched out by an unseen hand. And with it, the silence arrives. Not peaceful silence, heavy silence. The kind that carries breath, whispers, footsteps you didn't make. You close the shutters, fasten them with rope, press straw into the cracks. You light a single candle, expensive, precious, already half spent. It flickers like it's nervous. You don't speak loudly. Voices travel in the dark. And you don't want to draw attention. Not from people. Not from the other things. Because in the day, the worst you face is hunger, labor, and taxes. But at night, the world changes. It becomes narrow, fragile, haunted. The shadows stretch longer. The corners deepen. Every creak in the wall becomes a story you once heard of spirits or sinners or children who didn't knock before entering the woods. The rats come out now. They've waited all day, patient and bold. You hear them before you see them. Their claws click on wood. Their tails swish in the straw. One crosses the hearthstone like it owns it. The cat hisses. You don't move. You watch. Sometimes they're just scavengers. Sometimes they're messengers. That's what the old woman says anyway. The one who talks to herself and hangs bones over her doorway. You believed her once, when your brother got sick, when the rats grew bolder, when he died and they vanished the next day. You still believe her a little, just in case. You sleep close to the fire, closer to your family. Your child's head rests on your shoulder. You feel their breath warm, steady. You count each exhale like a prayer, because breath is precious, and you've watched it stop. No one likes to talk about death. Not really. But everyone smells it coming, in the way the air changes, in the stillness of the dog, in the way even the rats go quiet. You've buried too many, some in the field, some in the churchyard. Some not at all, just a shroud, a rock, a memory. You've dug with frozen hands, with borrowed shovels, with prayers stuck in your throat. You've sung songs through tears, or in silence. Not everyone dies from plague. Sometimes it's a fall, a burn, a bite, a cough that lingers too long. Sometimes it's just night. A man goes to sleep, doesn't wake. You don't ask why. You just wrap the body. Say the words, hope for light. But light feels far away right now. Your candle is low. The wind howls through the chimney. Your neighbor's dog whines. You pull your child closer. The fire cracks. You stare at the flame until your eyes blur. Not from sleep, but from fear. You know what happens if the fire dies. The cold creeps in. The sickness waits, and the rats grow braver. They chew cloth. They nibble skin. You've heard of babies mauled in the night, of old men found with fingers missing. You don't want to believe it, but you keep the knife nearby anyway. And still you sleep, because you must, because your body has nothing left, and because somehow, despite it all, you're still here, still breathing, still holding on. You close your eyes and drift toward the edge of rest, just far enough that the rats can't reach you. Not tonight. And now the fire is just aglow. The room is still except for the rise and fall of your family's breath. The wind has quieted. Even the rats seem content with whatever they found in the wall. It's the deep hour closer to tomorrow than today. And you, wrapped in a patchwork of cloth and fatigue, have made it through another day. You've endured. Let that sink in. You survived back-breaking labor, hunger with no promise of food, taxes that stripped your dignity, weather that mocked your shelter, shadows that whispered death, rats that clawed at your sleep. You survived it all. You just a peasant, not a knight, not a saint, not a king. No books will mention you. No statues will bear your face. But you existed. And that matters. Because your survival wasn't luck. It was learned, earned, passed down through calloused hands and whispered prayers. You knew how to stretch a handful of barley into 3 meals, how to read clouds, how to patch a roof with straw and hope, how to hush a crying child when the silence mattered more than comfort. You weren't powerful, but you were resourceful. You didn't command armies, but you knew the battlefield of a winter kitchen. You didn't write laws, but you remembered rules carved into you by generations of when to plant, what to say, who to trust, how to bury. And you knew how to live in spite of rulers, to navigate their greed, to survive their wars, to rebuild after their whims had burned your world. You endured plague not with medicine, but with memory. Starvation not with abundance, but with invention. Oppression not with rebellion, but with rhythm. Wake, work, weep, worship, wait, sleep, repeat. Each day a prayer with dirty hands. Each breath a protest. And still you laughed. You told stories. You kissed cheeks and sang lullabies and drank bad ale and danced in crooked shoes. You lived. You lived. That's what history forgets. That peasants didn't just suffer. They loved. They dreamed. They had humor, however dark. And in the worst of it all, they found ways to make life feel worth clinging to. So now, as you lie there, eyes heavy, heart slow, let yourself drift with the weight of that truth. You are not weak. You are the reason humanity kept going. You are the backbone, the soil, the song, and you don't have to keep your ears open for the rats anymore. Not tonight, because you don't have to wake up in the Middle Ages. Sleep well.